Oh my gosh, it's Hotline League episode 151. And we have a special episode today because we lost one friend. But we've gained or returned another. We'll get to him in just a second. But first, my constant co-host, Mark Zimmerman. How's it going, Mark?
It's going.
Okay.
That was exciting, dude.
I didn't know.
I'm really glad that I came back to this.
Were you going to go anywhere with that?
I started working on the picture for my tweet.
In the middle of the sentence, you started a sentence and then just stopped it so that you could figure out what to tweet?
I was already working on the picture for the tweet, but that was as much mental capacity I could
it just crashed.
Allocate. Yeah.
System overload.
I had one bit dedicated to that intro, and
Mark was trying to multitask and just it all fell apart.
I finished Rhythm of War and Mistborn, the first book, this week, actually. I finished both of them.
It's such a weird approach to reading Brandon Sanderson stuff. Is to both.
Well, I have been reading Mistborn on and off for a while, and then Rhythm of War came out, and I just binged that. And then there's only a little bit left in Mistborn anyway, so I just finished both.
Nice. Well, glad to have you back. Oh, wait, hang on, I'll set it up in a second. But returning to the show after a 50 episode drought. Were you on? I know we had you on for episode 100 when we had Peter on, but I don't know if we've had you on since then.
I was on since then, I think, maybe. Okay. But it's probably pretty close to that.
It's been probably close to a year since Kelby's been on. Welcome back to the show, Kelby. I'm happy that once again my YouTube comments can be filled with why are they wearing sunglasses inside, and also please don't invite Kelby back on again. I don't know what he does. Why is he even here?
Well, I'm excited to come back and fill your YouTube comments with the vitriol that they deserve. So.
Yeah, I needed the engagement. Anyway, wait, Kelby, do you want to explain who you are?
Yeah. My name is Kelby May. I know these guys because way back in the day, further back than most of you will remember, I used to run an LCS team when they were like relevant in the scene. Is called CLG. They weren't any more relevant competitively than they are now, but they were popular. So I did that for a couple years, and then I really haven't contributed anything since, and I've kind of just ridden the coattails on that previous position. My relationship with Travis and Peter to like appear like I do things in esports, but now I sell sponsorships for streamers.
And what is your current title?
I'm the VP of sales at Loaded, which is
the Chief Revenue Officer.
I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Travis Gafford Industries. But really, I think that title goes to Yoni. It's like a...
No, he's the SVP of sales.
Okay, gotcha.
And
are you still banned? Or are you still blocked from...
No, remember he got unblocked on the show.
Oh, he did? Oh, I did.
It was a momentous event. Yeah.
For his birthday.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. You don't even
Happy
remember
birthday.
That was a highlight.
That was in April, but okay.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it was April of this year. I think
it was
April of last year.
Yes. Yeah, it was definitely not this year.
It was a good one, Mark.
Once again, memory allocation is...
Mark has moved his microphone up so nobody can hear what he's saying. But...
Memory allocation suboptimal.
What are you drinking?
It's an Americano.
Oh. I really like the idea of it being hot chocolate with marshmallows because you've got those vibes going.
Is that what someone who wears sunglasses inside drinks?
No, the Christmas tree behind you was more what I was referencing than the glasses. But anyway, so this show is brought to you by Alienware. I'm always astounded that it continues to be brought to you by Alienware, given how awkward the show starts are. But there's been some big news, and part of the reason we have Kelby on the show is because last week Doublelift retired, and that is a bummer for me because I now have just a little bit longer to ride this out. A couple more videos about his legacy and what he meant, and then according to many commenters that I've seen over the years, I just poof into dust. I'll I'll be homeless and destitute because he's the only reason I'm here. So.
Well, the nice thing is, that he'll be unretired by summer. So.
Is that so? Do we think that that's the case?
Wow.
Should we just cancel this? This whole episode was going to be.
No. You do the whole episode.
His career.
Firmly believing that it's the end, so that way you can do it like 3 more times.
Okay. Good. I'm glad to hear it.
This is number 2, right?
Yes.
Because
Well, no, he didn't retire before.
No,
he took a split off. People have said that, like, oh, he retired again. He never said he retired. He was like, I'm taking this useless split off. And then he did it again a couple years later.
But this time he kept playing.
Hey, I got that joke, Travis.
Yeah.
Hopefully Peter's not watching. Peter, we love you.
He will not watch this content.
We'll get to the nice. Oh yeah, that's actually safe.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I know about Peter for sure, he might read the comments in the Reddit thread.
Yeah.
But
you can also clip it and send it to him.
Did you even ask Peter if he wanted to come on this episode, Travis? Or
I
you didn't want
messaged
to
him
go through
today.
The emotional toll.
I messaged him today and said, "Hey, interview for old time's sake." And he said, "How about I interview you? I'm a content creator now, bro. Interviews are behind me." And I said, "Are you coming for my job? Please don't." And he said, "Nah, it's just interviews are boring. I'm over them. I'm a WoW addicted streamer now." And I said, "Okay." And then he said, "I'll think about it." So that's where we're at.
All right.
I'm not surprised you wouldn't want to come. Like, it'd be weird to go to your own funeral, your own eulogy as people.
Mark likes to. We did this with Bjergsen, and Mark likes to present them as if it's a eulogy.
They're dead.
Well, we looked it up, and eulogy is the correct term. It is a eulogy for him. Did you know that, Kelby?
You guys, no, I didn't.
Mark, do you want to explain what the definition of eulogy is?
We don't need to go into this any further. Like, it's fine.
It's important.
But it's your guys' show.
A piece of writing that praises someone or something highly, typically someone who has just died, but also can be used at retirements and things.
So here we are for the Doublelift eulogy episode. Anyway, let's see. So what? I mean, should we? We did not really plan this. Kelby, why don't you, while I set up something, talk about your experience when you learned that Doublelift was retiring and all this stuff was happening. Did you know before the announcement hit? Because he and I had not. We had some conversation, but he didn't really tell anybody. He just dropped that twit longer.
Yeah, no. I mean, I've known Peter for a very long time, pretty much his entire professional career. And we catch up every once and so often about different points in his career and stuff. And we had talked this offseason, and I think it's Peter's prerogative and his story to share in regards to eliminating at which point that he feels comfortable how he arrived at this decision, all those different things, blah blah blah. But the last I had heard from Peter was that and I think he'd be fine with me sharing this, he was still planning on competing again around when we talked prior to Bjergsen's retirement announcement going live. So I don't know, things changed in that time period, and it's super saddening for me, obviously, to see him go. He was, I mean, I've talked about this privately with Travis and our friends, but he's really the only reason that I continued to watch North American League of Legends after a certain point, with so many of the players that I really liked moving on and retiring and not being active player of the game anymore. But I think he could. It's not from lack of ability. Certainly, the guy just won the previous split, him and Bjerg. But they want to move on to the next chapter of their life, and it's their decision. And it's weird for Peter, in my opinion, right? Because I think the only thing that he had left to prove, if you want to say that, is obviously international success. And we talked about that in our personal conversations, and I think that he had very good teams that maybe underperformed at Worlds, especially that TSM roster, was it 2016 that they were fucking goated, and then obviously the TL roster for summer last year, and that went to the MSI final and stuff. If those rosters didn't do it, what are you holding out for? NA as a region, especially this year, to me, did not look like we're getting closer. It looked like we're getting a lot further, especially in my watching of the summer split playoffs and those series. I was like, holy fuck. NA is going to get bopped when they go to Worlds. And not everybody got bopped, but like it's just like what is Peter still playing for? What is the likelihood of him really finally checking that off? I think that he as a player is capable certainly of doing it, and we have individuals in North America that are capable of doing it, but it's so hard over time, man.
Yeah. Did you guys, I don't know what to call it, drama or what, but did you watch like the clip of Doublelift talking about like some of the stuff that happened this offseason with
so I was gonna share this with Kelby. I linked this earlier in a Discord with Kelby, but he doesn't.
I watched the clips. I just like I don't have any insight into that. I haven't talked to Peter about anything prior to my conversation with him, and like even if I did, like that is
right.
Whatever Peter wants to share there, it's up to him to share. It's certainly not.
Well, I will just I'll read this out because it's public, right?
Yeah, sure.
This is a paraphrased description of what he says in the clip, which is initially during the off season, he says he did want to keep playing and he was really excited to play with Sword Art. The deal started to look shaky though, and the staff asked him if he would still be committed if they got Palette, a Vietnamese support instead. Doublelift said no because Palette doesn't speak much English and he didn't want to deal. Which, by the way, he also says in the clip, that's not in this, but that he had actually suggested Palette as an option. But he said no because Palette doesn't speak much English and he didn't want to deal with language barrier in the bot lane. He said the staff really did not like the answer, and now here we are. So, that's,
it's one of those things which just sounds, we're clearly not getting the full story, and so it's like, did TSM tell him to, like, did they tell him he lost his like position, so he retired? Like, exactly what happened with that, because it is weird to hear that he recommended Palette, but then also noped him. That seems weird. And then for TSM to then get Sword Art and not just be like, okay, water under the bridge, we weren't sure what was happening. Come on back, Doublelift. Like I don't know. It just, the whole thing sounds so weird.
Yeah,
they got the guy that he wanted.
So I will make a prediction, and then we don't have to spend too much more time speculating because then it's all just speculation. But my prediction is this: Peter will continue to say random things about what happened during this off season on stream. They will continue to get clipped, and slowly but surely we'll have his side of the story get pieced together. Reggie or somebody at TSM will come out with a different story that will respond to the things that Peter said. People will pick sides, and it will feel like a thing that will get really awkward for everyone. And then time will just pass. And then 2 years from now, Peter will play in some sort of all-star event next to Reggie, and everyone will be like, oh, they're all cool now or something. That is my guess. By the way, much like Kelby, I have not talked to Peter about the specifics of what happened, but I agree with Mark's assessment that, like, clearly things were not like, you know what, I just feel like retiring. And they were like, cool, buddy. And then everybody went their separate ways. I mean, even the way that it was released where, like, Peters drops his twit longer, TSM clearly not ready to, like, announce or say thank you Doublelift or whatever, it does feel kind of weird. So
yeah, that's what's going to happen, but you didn't speculate on what did happen.
No, I mean, it's not my place to speculate on what did happen because we don't really know the details yet. But
I really just hope, with that context, I really just hope that Peter retired for the right reasons. I also really don't want to see a scenario like what we had, and I don't think we're necessarily lined up for this, but like a scenario like we had with him leaving CLG and him and George getting into a huge tiff. I know that at the time, Travis, me and you and a lot of people were talking to Peter and George simultaneously about how this was not a good idea, and I wouldn't want to see, like, Peter's exit from the professional scene. I think the conversation should hopefully just be everything about his legacy and not.
Yeah, I think he should. I mean, in a non-COVID year, I would say, like, he and Lena should go to Hawaii for 2 weeks and just chill, and and he should turn off, like, social media or whatever and just relax. And I think that's part of the reason why, like, I waited till today to even just suggest the idea of at some point in time doing an interview in the future, because the impression I have is he just wants to, like, hang out. He did a little stream today. I don't know if he played much League. He was on the just chatting category for a while, just kind of interacting with his fans some, and I think like he's just gonna like sort of reset after what was a very volatile year. I mean, he started the season on Team Liquid and ended it, awkwardly on TSM. Yeah. So
I mean, I could tell you that if I didn't have to play League for a job anymore, I'd never play the game again. So I'm sure he's loving it.
That's because you're not a competitor, Kelby. You don't know what it's like to have the drive.
That's true. I'm memeing, but still.
Anyway, so because this is the eulogy episode, we are interested in taking your calls. I think. Look, I don't think all of this needs to be... Mark, what should we do? 45 minutes of calls about Peter, and then after that we can sort of talk about off-season and the state of the league in general. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of business discussions and stuff that Kelby will be valuable for. So,
I'm kind of just pulling people randomly right now.
Oh, you've already been starting to pull people.
Oh, yeah. I've started doing this where I just start pulling people.
Something's never changed, dude. By the way, I just really love Mark's setup and background. Like, I just feel like it's so Mark. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Just a white wall and then a single Christmas tree.
Yeah,
to be clear,
with the glasses and everything.
If Mark really was single, that Christmas tree would not be there. There'd probably be like a pizza box. That is Mark's.
Mark's like considering the likelihood.
I mean, I'm thinking back to my old place before Ashley and I started living together, and it was I think just a bed and a desk.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The influence. It is very easy to tell. I've known Mark long enough, and I'm aware of his relationship enough that I can tell what areas have been influenced and what areas.
You're all over my relationship. You need to get your own. That's what you need. You need to get out of my face.
Thank you, Mark, for bringing this up on the show right now. Let's get into the calls. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, what have you actually been pulling?
You want me to do the spiel? Should I do the spiel?
Yeah, do the spiel.
Okay, so for those who have never been to the show before, it is a live call-in show, which means you can actually get on the show and give us your takes. I'm spamming Twitch chat with the Discord link, and you can go ahead and join up when you get there into the Pleb Calls or Pleb Calls to voice channels. From there, you're going to want to go into the Pleb Topics text channel and write out your take. We prefer takes, but we can do some questions if people have some previous GMing questions for Kelby or anything around the business. Otherwise, if I like your topic, I'll pull you from that voice channel that you're hanging out into the waiting room where you will hang out until it's your turn. We'll do a quick mic check, make sure everything works, and then pull you on air, and then you'll be here chatting with the three of us.
Very good. So are you actually going to try to pull? I feel like you should pull the Doublelift takes earlier.
I'll try. I don't remember whose takes are what. So I'll be back with the Doublelift one for sure.
Okay. Off he goes. Thank you to, let's see, we got a lot of subs right now, which I really appreciate.
Real Foxy 1, Boba Cola.
JagC26. We're going sunglasses list now. JagC26, It's Volks, who gifted a sub. Travis Gafford's my hero. Joby Kenobi, Darking, Ririkiri, Wafflefoot, Da Barracuda, Boy Maple, Azraf, Waker Bob, Potato Freak, Ferber2, CL Haste, 42 Ultra, Jesse gifted out 10 subs. Thank you, Hitstreak. Call Me Cosmic. By the way, that's very generous of you, Hitstreak. Thank you. Paint Dark, America Vespucci, Cassiarami, and Harmard. Where's Mark? Taking a long time.
He's chilling, dude.
The Convict Team Corgi Mid, the Real Fox Shroud, Biagio.
Hello.
There he is. Okay. V Quisling, where are you calling from?
New York City, New York.
New York City, New York. How's New York?
It's okay. Pretty rainy out, Staying inside, trying to stay safe. Stuff.
Well, what do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about CLG TSM Summer 2015. I guess Doublelift's first title, what it meant for the league at the time. Like, I felt like it was such, a momentous thing for all of the fans who had been following him for so long. There was the meme about, Doublelift's trophy case. It was also the biggest, or I guess the first real, like large event held in New York. And so I got to see it live, and that was like the biggest thing for us over there. We've only had a couple events since. I think like SKT Rocks World Semis was also there, but like CLG TSM in Madison Square Garden was like, dude, I don't know. It was the most hype event ever. And to see Doublelift, really, like, I think they were almost relegated in spring of that year, if I remember correctly. Like, they almost lost to Azure Cats, and they were in relegations in spring. And so to come from that to 3-0ing TSM in, one of the most historic venues felt like, not only like a really great moment for Doublelift, but also for the league, in terms
I
of
think the
where it
Azure
had
Cats
been.
thing was earlier, but if you told me that they were in threat of getting relegated in spring of 2015, I would definitely believe you for sure.
To help with this timeline, because we actually played CLG almost every single postseason
Curse
for a little bit. Yeah, as Curse. We lost to them in the fourth place match in spring 2014. Summer, I think that's when they came back from their Korea boot camp and got destroyed. And that's when they played the relegation series after that one. Spring, we played them again, and that was the Piglet series and the auto spacing meme in 2015. And then 2015 summer was when they won the championship.
Yeah. And so, yeah, no, I mean, I super agree. Sorry, was that your first? You were there at Madison Square Garden, yes?
Yeah, it was my first league event, so I was definitely spoiled. I mean, it was great.
Yeah.
Were you there
I mean,
as a CLG fan?
I was. I mean, not so much anymore.
Yeah. Yes, I am. Yeah,
That goes without saying, man.
But so that must have been crazy for you, because I talked about this a little bit in my.
I mean, the event was so hype it got Rick Fox to buy into the league, so it was
Yeah.
that good of an event.
Yes, I think Madison Square Garden too. I think they came in years later in part because of the experience that they had at MSG when the event was there. So for better or for worse, I remember specifically just the build up. So many League fans will not know, like the legacy of CLG just losing constantly and like always being this hype team. I mean, Kelby, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, but it's like it always felt like CLG was supposed to be good, and then just like something would always go wrong, and it would either head towards relegations or just lose sadly or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I mean, for the timeline, so this was, I had run the organization for the 2 years previous, and then I left at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015, and I actually, we've talked about this, Travis. I don't know if I've talked about it publicly before, but I think that me leaving the organization actually allowed for a lot more competitive success. I think that my involvement in the org, because Peter and I were best friends for so long, gave him more power over roster decisions, not like actively or intentionally, but like, in considering about roster decisions and all those things, like I weighted him more heavily. Also from a revenue generation standpoint, like this is like Doublelift, the most popular player in NA. Like this is pre-VC being in the scenes. Sponsor revenues are really, really important, and he is the driving factor for all of our revenues. So he's kind of untouchable. When I left the organization, it forced kind of I was handling esports is a different era, right? It's like it's a 2 full-time employee company. It's me and Matcom they're doing all the work. It forced George and other people to take a more active role in like the roster and these different things. Peter lost kind of like his pedestal in terms of dictating roster things. Again, not intentionally, like he's trying to like be some Machiavellian overlord and secure his position or something like that. But he just had a lot of influence. And then my departure, I think, allowed for them to hire coaches, make more sweeping roster decisions, and it ushered in a new era for the organization where competitively, obviously, they were more successful. after my departure. And I think if I would have continued, that probably wouldn't have changed.
Kelby May was the problem, is what you're hearing.
No, for sure. I think in terms of competitive success, I absolutely was a hindrance to the organization. Obviously not intentionally, but just as a product of the way that like that ecosystem was structured and the amount of resources we had and all of these different factors. So, for me personally, sorry, I know I'm talking about having left the organization and wanting so bad for so long to see those guys succeed, Peter especially. Like, I had posts on the CLG forums back in the day where, like, I don't know if you guys get this. I think other people probably get this too. But, like, I used to have very, very vivid daydreams about what it would be like for the team to finally win, specifically in the context of, like, the PAX events where regional finals used to always happen. And we wanted it so bad. And to see them finally do it after years of, like, failure, and, like, we had some good series against TSM. I remember the one split, we were up 1-0 on TSM in the fucking, like, third place match, I think, or something, Travis, and I was so sure we were gonna fucking win that series. And then, like, we choked game 2 and lost game 3 when we had Nien and Link on the team and stuff. But, like, so to see them finally win in the fashion that they did, even though I wasn't able to attend in person, it was so satisfying, and it meant so much. And I know that it's just, like, for CLG fans who waited so long for such a popular organization to fail repeatedly and then finally put it together, I think it was tremendously impactful for the narratives and, like, brand success of the LCS in North America. Like, it's one of those things that, like, you script and you hope finally happens, and it finally did.
I just realized I was the only one still wearing glasses. I didn't get the memo.
No, that's okay. We were out of the call whenever we switched.
That match, if you go and check the most popular posts of all time on the League of Legends subreddit, I mean, like, that match was it's the only one on that first page that is a post-game reaction thread, and it's, like, top 10, I think. Yeah, it looks like it's top 10. It was, like, the biggest event, you could argue in some ways, or at least match in League history for the North American scene. Yeah. I don't think that another match has overtaken it yet. There's been better matches. I mean, that was a shellacking. CLG shit on them. Yeah. So, like, it wasn't, like, in terms of quality the most, but just, like you're saying, with all those storylines and stuff and how much it paid off for so many fans and for players, and like Afro and Doublelift, the embrace, and, like, all that stuff that happened, it was huge. So, like, that was like
the Kobe call. He's, like, weeping as, like, I never stop believing type thing.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Iconic call.
All that stuff was amazing. The venue was amazing.
Doublelift pentakill on Jinx.
Yes, in the bot lane play.
Yeah.
First time in the main, or, like, in such a big venue for an LCS final, because, as Kelby said before, then it was, like, PAX finals in a ballroom in a convention center. So
yeah, and I mean, it was nuts in actual New York City. We went Curse after I guess we were Team Liquid then. After we played the fourth place match, we held get together in. I think it was.
It was Washington Square Park, right? Yeah, I was there.
Yeah,
it got shut down.
It got shut down. The line was massive. The cops were like, "What the fuck is going on?" We were like, "We had no idea this many people would show up." Like, it was actually nuts.
Like, I think it was one of the only, like, real East Coast events aside from some of the PAXs in Boston. Yeah. So New York was clamoring for an event, and just to have
in, like, the most dense metropolitan area.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I don't think, to your point, Mark, I don't think, and I had not considered this, but, like, there hasn't been an event or a match like that has happened like that for North America ever since. And I don't know how, there are no current storylines that could give you, that could deliver you something like that, right? Like, even if a Golden Guardians or a FlyQuest or something won, it just would not, it would not hit that level of, like, build up or storyline or whatever, even if people thought, wow, this is a crazy upset. I think the only way it could happen is if we won MSI or Worlds or something, at least anytime soon. And maybe those storylines will develop again. Maybe there'll be some crazy stories about, some team that just always gets close, and it'll happen 5 or 6 or 7 years from now. But it is true that it just feels like that's going to define this generation of LCS in terms of just the definitive game.
And it just feels like in a lot of ways that era is kind of dead of like franchise players. You know, like no one.
Yeah.
What's the longest running player on a team? Is it like fucking Jensen at this point on Team Liquid? You know, like I don't even know. Maybe
someday. So I don't know, Mark, if you saw this, but Blue Jay found a document from summer of 2019. I did a video about this on the channel if people want to go look at it. Only 3 players are now on the same team as they were in summer of 2019. Everything else has changed in the LCS. And then I went and did some additional like math, very simple, and found that only 19 of the players that competed in summer 2019 will be competing, at least in the start of summer 2019, will be competing next year. Like we've thrown out more than half the league in the past year. So, and I know everybody goes, good. Yep, there it is. Tom Shoe with the good. It's such a lazy answer, by the way. But yeah, I think it's interesting for sure.
It at least speaks to the fact that like that era of these guys who are their organizations who have been thwarted by another organization, like that just doesn't happen anymore. Like that's not a thing. Yeah. Like even Steve getting his win, you know, like that was a storyline. You know, even though Doublelift was the one who did it, you know, like. Is there going to be a time where we're like, Hunter's done it? You know, like, is that the next storyline or whatever it is?
Yeah, I think, I guess maybe if this, like, you know, one of these rando rosters, like the Immortals one or the Golden Guardians one, like, ends up winning, you know, especially if they win on a stage, like if Summer Split is able, you know, the world is able to have an arena event by the end of summer, which seems unlikely. But if they did it, I think maybe that would feel bonkers or something. But even then, it would not have, like, the historical context to build up the narrative.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, nobody's won a split outside of CLG, C9, TSM, and Team Liquid, right? So
yeah,
one of the and like, you know, effectively it's 3 teams that are in consideration for that moving forward. So somebody outside of the old guard winning would be momentous. But yeah, I don't think anywhere near that CLG TSM storyline.
Yeah,
biased obviously, but.
Well, Vic Quisling, thank you for bringing us down memory lane. That's actually that match. I mean, I said this in my Doublelift retirement video, but that match is my favorite match. My favorite experience ever was watching Peter win that at Madison Square Garden. So I appreciate you bringing
for sure.
That. Yeah.
Anything I mean, not to discredit all of his other titles, but that one, I think, you know.
No, I mean that. It broke the subreddit. Is there anything that you want to shout out before we move on to the next caller?
Bring back Esports and Chill.
Oh, wow.
That's a throwback. I mean, I was wearing last week when Hunter was on the show. I was wearing my Esports and Chill hoodie. We've had 2 of the 3 co-hosts from Esports and Chill on. If we get Nick Allen next week, then we'll have at least rotated through all of them in a 3-week period.
Yeah.
All right, looking forward to it.
Thanks, Vic Quisling. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.
Booted him.
I didn't. Well, he said thanks, take care, and then I clicked the button, and then it was not intentional. Off goes Mark. Thank you to The Real Fox Shroud, Biagio, Rob Tron, Mr. Brooks Gaming, Double Sniffed, T-Met17, Stahil, My PS, Ferber2 gifted a sub to Tyler 1. I'm sure he's going to appreciate that. Sev the Sniper, B-Web, Yoni. Thank you, Yoni.
Wow.
Drunkard, Aerohydrus, Sad Knives, Brian, Blossom, Lucina, Nanuko 111, and Rashik. Rashik, who subscribed for 5 months in advance. I love seeing the advance. It's always fantastic. Sir Rambutan is here. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my topic was that Doublelift made LCS popular as an esport, but also as like a community. And I think the scene owes him a lot as a person and as a player. So Doublelift entered the community, or Doublelift caused a lot of people to enter the community because of his personality. The way he held himself and like the way he played was aggressive, and he was over the top, and he made a lot of people either love him or love to hate him. And I think, like, at least for myself and all of my friends who watch LCS today, we got into it because we saw him like walking in and calling everyone trash and then going in 1v3 in the bot lane and winning half of them. And I think he just had an air around him when playing that made you have to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I have frequently thought of him, and this is great because I get a huge excuse to just say stuff, and all the people that say I'm biased or whatever can, whatever. But I've frequently thought of him as the main character of North American League of Legends. Like, just his story arc, the fact that he's been here since season 1, competed in the season 1 World Championships, competed every year, had so many ups and downs. I mean, not to get too dark, but his like personal tragedy, like was a big story for one of the years as well. Like it's been really crazy to sort of see his progression throughout the years, and I think, especially for a native North American talent, is the only one that has ever had very long-lasting acclaim among the international audience. I mean, think about the generations of players that Peter has competed against, like Messiah and Uzi and Deft and all these players. It's just like, it's crazy to sort of see. I mean, a great experiment or content piece would be looking at just the players that he has laned against over all these years. And yeah, you're right. Like, I think, I mean, almost to the detriment of the LCS, Peter has commanded so much of the attention, and it is unfortunate that I don't think that there are too many other players that have reached his level of boldness in interviews and content and sort of speaking out and saying things, and sometimes maybe speaking out a little too much and saying a little too much. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to sort of think through the years of what he's been able to do for the esport. And even the haters that hate hearing me say all this about him, they've probably skipped to later on in the show, but those people hated him. Like he popular for similar reasons to TSM, where like either everyone was rooting for him or rooting against him at different parts in his career. And there's very few people who I think have no opinion of him. And I think even like the criticism or the critics, I think he's drawn a reason for people to root against him and to care about the sport in that way. So
I think it's definitely true that, like, the thing about his smack talk was it wasn't just smack talk. Like, I think a lot of people, they get up in front of a microphone and they have some like joke or something that they prepared. Like, his smack talk was always laced with like somewhat of his own feelings, and there's always this idea that he's probably saying a little bit more than he really should, which I think made it all the more endearing for a lot of people, or like you're saying, drove them further away, because it didn't feel like a character he was putting on. Whereas sometimes when players these days say their thing, whatever it is for Riot, it doesn't feel authentic. Like, this is, like you're going to be saying this in a week from now or something. Whereas for Doublelift, it was like, all right, dude, I don't know if you should be saying that, but that's what you think. Okay.
Yeah. And it was never calculated, right? I think that's another thing. Like, a lot of times the trash talk feels calculated or forced. For him, it's just like, he'd just be like, yeah, I mean, we're going to shit on him. Or, like the jokes he would make about some teams where he'd just think they were not even worth talking about. It's just funny. It's just so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, people would say that, yeah, I'm like an emotional fan. I'm not looking at the stats. But if you think about it, didn't FBI said when he came to the league, he was afraid of playing against Doublelift, like of laning against him. Even on Team Liquid Tactical, like, he said something when he came to the league about looking up to Doublelift. It's not
Sticks
just
tweeted that he was his biggest inspiration, I think, to go.
Yeah, like, it's not even just fans. Like, the other players that trained their whole life to become like a player on a team, he caused that. Like, he was the guy that everyone looked up to as a kid when they played the game, and like they spent hours and hours grinding. And like, I don't know how you can ever take away that legacy. Like, every player from now on will be like a descendant of people that were basically brought into the league because of Doublelift.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that I would pull away from this is that, like, Peter was not a bystander in his own story. I think it's important for other players to recognize that, like, people didn't tell Peter's story for him, and this is where I'd like to give a huge amount of on the limited occasion. All right,
Oh, no.
so you need to hold this dear and near to your heart, Travis. But I think Travis is hugely important and influential in encouraging Peter to do interviews and giving him a platform so many times. For like a lot of Peter's most iconic quotes come from pieces of Travis's content, and because of Travis and Peter's relationship, he always felt, obviously, like if you look back at the volume of interviews that Travis has done with individual players, Peter ranks far above everybody else, right? And because of those opportunities for Peter to speak his mind, it allowed him to develop his own narrative and contribute his thoughts and color to what was transpiring. And the fact, obviously, that's great about that on top of it is that Travis knows Peter. Travis knows what to ask Peter. Travis knows in the back of his mind how Peter is going to respond. And it makes a really, really good story. And then obviously he had all the other things, as you guys have highlighted, on going with it, like the greatest North American player of our time, probably the only North American resident player to ever be considered in like the top 1 or top 2 for his position in the world at a point in his career. So, you know, like it's hugely important, and I just don't get that. And I'm not paying attention to the professional League of Legends scene as much as I once did, but I don't get that from players anymore. Like I don't see the same opportunities, and I don't see the same personalities that I'm attracted to the way that I was Peter. And obviously I'm incredibly biased due to my proximity to him and Travis, but it's sad. I miss that about the NA League space.
People in the chat saying, LOL, when was that? When was he considered top 2 in the world? Just we're not here in 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
Like
No.
that's it's like I don't fault them for having that reaction, because the idea of a North American player being considered, you know, top in their role is so foreign. It was
like him, Wei Zhao, and like maybe Reckless at that IPL 5.
No, I mean going to the first season of the LCS, the All-Star thing, it was crazy. The people should go find the Superman
yes, it's an amazing video
of him, like that was cut to the Superman trailer, and it was done that way, and like they posed Messiah as the villain that he would be fighting, because this was the main ADC rivalry at that time. And I get it, like people maybe weren't around for that time, but it's the people that know that was actually how that worked, you know.
And I think people that have only been around recently don't know. I started playing League back in early 2014, so I wasn't even there for what I would guess would be like the top of Doublelift being better than everyone. But I hated him when I first started watching. Right, he was the heel, and like I wanted to see him fail, but he just would not stay down ever. And then by like late 2016, early 2017, I gave up, and I was like, this guy is good. Like he is as good as he says. And then I loved him from that point on. Like at that point, I couldn't hate him anymore.
By the way, I meant Wei Zhao, not Messiah. Correcting myself. Also, Papa Smithy, really quickly, just to say this, he said in OGN Season 2, he was the biggest star in the first season of OGN Champions for sure. And that is a really great point. Like, before, you know, like the Korean, obviously,
dominance,
they changed once Korean dominance became, but like, they brought CLG over so that they could feel like they have these like really exciting teams to compete against, you know, for their new players.
And I think one thing too is in sports, and people talk about how much like, oh, this player grew this scene and stuff. And there's always like that small caveat that I think some people have, which is like, well, the scene would have grown anyways, and like it would have been popular and all this stuff. But I don't think that it always is going to grow the same way. I think there's some people who, you know, help elevate a scene beyond what it probably naturally would have done. And I think, you know, Doublelift is definitely one of those people. Bjergsen probably as well, just in terms of like, just look at the Twitter followers, for God's sake. You know, and like even Scar and some of those other people helped. But like, if you look at like Smash Bros, like the Smash Bros scene is not the same without Mango, no matter what. Like, there's no way you could have that scene. And like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird in the 70s for basketball, like that scene like basketball was almost dead before they showed up. Like you can't necessarily know exactly how big of an influence a superstar can have because like obviously there's all this infrastructure around them that's propping up the scene. But if you don't have a face to slap on it, like that's what people connect with is a face more than almost anything else.
Yeah, The Last Dance came out this year. Anybody who watched that documentary or was alive during that era, and now I'm really dating myself, like what Michael Jordan did for the NBA, just fucking unprecedented. Will league be put in front of the same number of people maybe if Peter is not here? Absolutely. The retention of those fans, the engagement of those fans by vibrant superstar personalities absolutely tremendously impacts the success and growth of the esports scene over time.
Sir Rambutan, any final thoughts? I know we kind of took your thing and ran with it, but hopefully
that's fine. I'm just happy to hear you guys talk about it, and Doublelift will always be the king of North America.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any shout outs you want to make?
Shout out Alienware. Shout out you guys. You do a great job. Yeah. See you around.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling in, man.
We're going to take a quick break right now to talk about Alienware, which, by the way, if you're watching live, I think there's still time to go over to alienware.com/Travis, click the banner at the top, and take a look at their Cyber Monday deals. But I want to thank Alienware so much because... hang on. Let me move this Christmas tree. What is behind me right now is my next new computer, which I will be playing. I'll probably end up streaming Cyberpunk on whenever it releases, because this has an RTX 3090 in it. So the ray tracing is going to be sick. I know it's really difficult to find these, and I'm really excited that they ended up sending me one. So and it's going to be really fun to check that out. I've set it up over there because I knew I was doing the stream tonight. Wanted to make sure that I had time to get all the programs and everything running and make sure everything was set up and good to go and didn't have any issues. It's a brand new build, but very, very excited about Alienware's support of everything that I do. And those NVIDIA Alienware streams should be hitting once Cyberpunk is out. Be sure to follow my social media for that. Excited to be doing that, sort of showcasing some of the capabilities. I think I'm going to stream it using my ultra wide, so it'll kind of have that cinematic look for anybody who's interested in taking a look at that. But either way, really excited about the 3090. It's great. I mean, this computer is a beast behind me. It's going to be my new workhorse for so many things. So thank you to Alienware for hooking it up, and thank you so much. I'm sure maybe if you guys missed the Black Friday or the Cyber Monday stuff, or you're waiting for a little bit more savings or something. Guess what? You can still save by using Travis 10 off Q4. There's a link in the video description if you're watching this on YouTube. And it's a great way. Oh, by the way, thank you. So many people messaged me during the last several days saying hey, I'm on the Alienware website. I want to make sure you get credit. That is actually so nice. My CRO is on the show right now, and he will tell you that having that tracking is incredibly helpful.
It is true.
Because
it is true, they pay attention to that shit. I
mean, they don't doubt that you guys are supportive and that we bring them value, but it's just so nice at the end of the year when we're talking to them about the following, or the coming year, to be able to say well, look how many people went and checked this out. So either way, thank you to everybody who did hit me up for that. That is actually very generous and very much appreciated. Anyway, Mark, you want to go grab the next caller?
Yes, sir.
Okay, off he goes. Thank you to Scion QT, Rashik, Nunuko. I think I had those. Rico's Wave gifted a sub to FlyQuest. What's that?
This is the last Doublelift memory one, and then there'll be some more broader ones.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, Caesar's here. Caesar, where are you calling from?
Los Angeles. I'm pretty local to everyone.
Dude,
oh, nice.
Is this the Caesar that I know?
Yes,
Caesar?
sir. What's up, Kelby?
Oh my god, dude. How's it going, man?
I heard
Caesar,
you on the
Caesar
show,
is
so I had to come in.
old school CLG fan.
Really? Wait,
oh, yeah.
I know Caesar? Caesar, should I know
not as well as Kelby, but I think
okay,
we've met
that's crazy.
briefly.
Is this your first time calling in?
I think I've called in once before, but I only tune in really for the bigger streams, and I thought this is one of the big ones I should definitely tune into. So
Nice.
here.
You're absolutely right, sir.
Well, cool to have you on. I'm glad we got you on. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I just want to talk about how essentially like Doublelift kind of rewrote his legacy and like his journey essentially, because you think about the earlier days with like Kelby, not necessarily running the team. Like I don't want to put the fault on Kelby or anything, but like just like the rosters that like Doublelift essentially just carried is just insane. Because up until when they won the LCS Summer Split, the biggest CLG win I remember was at MLG Anaheim in 2013 when CLG won the base race with the Winions because TSM couldn't clear it.
The Neon.
Oh yeah,
Dude, that was a fucking if you guys have never been to a live esports event, like being a part of one of those moments is so fucking insane. I remember
the mic just from the broadcasters picking up all the craziness. It's so insane.
I lost my voice like that entire weekend because I think CLG actually went 3-0, which was like insane back then. But it's also just like beating TSM was such an accomplishment back in that day, especially for CLG. It was just insane. But the biggest thing I really wanted to talk about was when CLG was in their relegation match against Curse Academy. And I remember CLG was down 2-2, and I remember they walked out for Game 5, and like everyone looked tilted. Like CLG was gonna be 100% relegated. I was like, bro, they're out. There's no coming back. You had Seraph top, Dexter in the jungle, Link mid, Doublelift and Afro, I think, or was it Chalister? I'm not too sure.
It would have been Afro, I think, because Chalister was out by. Wasn't Afro out by Chalister out by the start of LCS? I think he was.
Yeah, I can't remember that roster. I just remember that I went with the team to the studio for every single match. I didn't go for that relegation series because we were so sure there was no fucking chance these guys were going to do anything against us. And then I'm at home watching. We're down 0-2, ready to drink bleach. I swear to God, because if you get out of the LCS, like literally we have like contract conditions with sponsors that are like, if you're relegated, like revenue stops. Well, like it's like the end of the company. And sorry, continue Caesar with the story.
I would just say like, I was with you. I was 100% CLG is out. There's no way they come back too. Oh, they were just losing. There's no way they come back. And just like, I've never really talked to Double like in person. I don't know how he is on a team. I'm not a professional player or anything, but just I remember how loud he was in the studio. I was sitting all the way in the far back because I showed up kind of late and I was with my friends, and just how loud Doublelift was. Like I was past the caster booth in the old Manhattan Beach studio, and I could just hear him yelling out like drag timers and like when to rotate, and he like legit just carried CLG and put everyone on his back and was like, "We're not getting fucking eliminated today. We have to win," and like. That's kind of just a testament to like the type of player Doublelift was his entire career. Like you had the almost eliminated by Azure Cats, you had the almost eliminated by Curse Academy, but he never gave up, and like he got on these better rosters and proved himself. But he was always a good player. It seemed like he wasn't surrounded with like the right talent or necessarily the right teams. I mean, in the early part of his career.
So
for a while, he was kind of the king of relegations, right? Because I love the fact that he came back to save Team Liquid in the final ever relegation. Like, it's so great that they like had to grab him and do this spring split took off.
The great thing about that match too was I didn't really work with Curse Academy during the regular season or anything like that led up to that, but I was in their room kind of like helping out a little bit with their coaches and stuff about during that match, and like. Kelby couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe it. Like, you know,
fuck, dude.
It was basically Keen just having the craziest cheese shit of all time. You know, this was his Hecarim mid with TP home guards before that was like really a thing, and like it was his counter to Zed, which was like hella broken at the time. And there's like, I mean, there's a lot going on in those games. But yeah, basically like we were like they can't win. It's just protect Doublelift. That's what all the comps turned into. It was like Ori Janna, fucking. Protect Doublelift comps, and that was the only way. And the entire time, you know, I watched those first two games, and I was like, I don't think we're gonna beat them, even after being up 2-0. I was just like, I don't like. We are cheesing the fuck out of these guys, and yeah, man, it was a crazy series. And there's like a lot of like the Bunny Fufu flay on Doublelift in the top lane was sick. It was actually like a lot of really cool moments during that. But yeah, it ended up just being like protect the Doublelift 1v9.
I mean,
area.
years and years of protect the
Tritonity.
Doublelift comps for CLG and for
For
Peter,
better or
for
worse,
the-
to be fair, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like that was the whole pretty much the early era of CLG. It's just like CLG didn't really win anything until that first championship they won, and then Doublelift immediately gets kicked. It's like I felt really bad for Doublelift, but like he's the one who made me a CLG fan. I stayed loyal to CLG, but like after he left after a couple of years, it's like it's not the same, especially with no one on the roster anymore. It's like it's not as entertaining for me to watch. I watched the TSM vlog when they were at Worlds, and I'm like, Doublelift is such a marketable player that like brings entertainment to everyone. It's like he's super easy to watch from like a consumer standpoint. I feel like so it's definitely like after they're not being like a Doublelift. I was always a Doublelift fan, but I try to stay loyal to CLG. But just like Doublelift was essentially what made me like a fan of League in the end. Like I know people in the chat were saying they don't remember when they wouldn't call Doublelift a top 2 player in the world, but it was easily him and like Wei Zhao. It wasn't until later when people came into the scene with Korea where the 80K started popping off. But Doublelift had like a tremendous legacy early, but he had nothing to show for it. That's how the whole Doublelift trophy case meme started.
Yeah.
And it just sucked, but I'm glad that he finished it off with trophies in there and he's a winner now, you know?
I mean, it's crazy to think about. There's so many League fans, probably the majority of the people that are watching the show right now, that just had no idea about the Doublelift trophy case meme. That have no idea. They just only knew him as like the guy that won so much.
Here's some free content, Travis. You should go dig up and tweet out to have people do the work for you. Go outsource that. But dig up all the old memes from like 2011 through 2013, 2014, and
The All-Stars
just, like, review them on
memes.
stream.
The All-Stars 2013 memes, I don't know if they'll ever be any as good of memes as there were for that. That was sick. That was such a great event. Caesar, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we move on to the next caller?
Nah, I just want to thank Travis for giving us all those sweet interviews and free content, and just Kelby for holding it down for CLG during the early years and everything.
Yeah, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
man.
Thanks for
I
calling
appreciate
in.
you
Great to
calling
have
in,
you
dude.
on. Yeah. All right. Thank you to Aldor for the tier 2 sub. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. The Slatherpuss, Crouton, Odyssey 3, Gengarifith, Inuber, and Purple Ray Q. Really appreciate all the subs. We have fallen from our 2,000 subscriber thing once again. We're at 1829. I have no hopes of returning to it now. All the off-season content is dried up, and now everyone can't come here and hope that I'll just leak TSM roster moves or something like that and get the subs. But it's okay. I'll keep making the content anyway for all of you that stay with me regardless. Haramos, thank you for the prime. Kelby, you're just waiting. You're in a holding pattern for the new Total War DLC, huh?
Oh yeah, and Cyberpunk and Devil May Cry Virtual DLC release on PC. But yeah, I've been going through a real drought, a real heavy drought.
Kelby has never and will never play World of Warcraft, unfortunately, and so Shadowlands release means nothing to him.
No, unfortunately not. I've been playing Siege with some Zoomers that I met online, but other than that, yeah, I've been super bored. And actually, I wanted to say this before we got into the show. I was thinking about this before coming on. This is how much of a drought I've been in this year. This year, I watched more competitive League than I did competitive Dota.
Sorry about the delay. I think I pulled the wrong person.
Oh, really?
The waiting room, because there was a topic, I swear to God, that was like.
Well, you can look for it while we go through this.
Yeah, whatever. All right, you can do the other guy.
He's in here.
Great for building. Is this the person you accidentally pulled?
No.
Okay.
No. That person's not in the waiting room.
Okay. Well, anyway, yeah. Kelby was just bemoaning the fact that he's had to watch more competitive League than competitive Dota, because Dota is dead in 2020.
Yeah. Worse than TSM's performance at Worlds has been Valve's handling of the Dota professional circuit during COVID. It is a fucking embarrassment, to be sure.
I saw a clip of some caster on something like complaining about it and being like, "How is esports and like us the only league that's not figuring it out?" And it felt great. as LCS was getting slammed, for all the broadcast problems and whatnot, just seeing some other being like, you know what, I can't complain.
What's that phrase? It's like we've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas.
Oh, it's so true, dude.
Anyway, Variance is here. Variance, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Norwich in the east of England.
Oh wow, your accent is fantastic. I'm so happy you said Norwich. Anyway, what do you want to talk about on the show?
I'd like to talk about sort of following on from a topic you brought up in your latest video about who is going to take over as like the most popular player in the league now that Doublelift and Bjergsen are both gone. And I think the answer that makes most sense to me is Speaker.
Oh, okay. This is not where I was expecting you to go.
Yeah.
Why? Okay. Why Speaker? And then I have a challenge for you on that.
Okay. So I think you need to have a few quite particular. You have to fulfill some criteria in order to sort of be that level of famous in the scene. Obviously, we're never going to get another Doublelift again. Like someone who's been here from the very start and has had lows and highs all the way. But I think Speaker, he's still a very young player. He's only 19. As far as we can tell, he's got a long career ahead of him, and he's lasted long already. He's lasted a lot longer than a lot of other TSM junglers. So, like,
he's the only one standing. He's the last, the only person left from the winning team of summer 2020.
He's the longest standing TSM member.
Yes.
Yeah, the stats don't lie. He's basically what Mike Young was meant to be, but then it didn't really work out for Mike Young. So Speaker's doing it better, I guess.
Do you think Mark is... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go on. No, go for it.
Did you have anything else on your thought process? Because I don't mind giving you the floor.
Oh, well, I was just going to say he's already made good work towards building a personality and a fan base. Like, he streams regularly. He's quite a personable figure in all the TSM content and stuff. So it does seem like he's putting himself out there and trying to be a personality more so than just a player in the scene.
So Scam Train just started. Thank you, Twitch chat. Mark, do you think that Spica are we safe to count on Spica as a player who will stay, unlike maybe what happened with Mike Young?
For the short term, meaning like at least a year, probably. I mean, he seems pretty good. I was fairly impressed with his year overall.
I mean, we did a run at arguing that he might be the next great jungler for the league. So,
yeah, I mean, will he reach Blabber heights? Maybe not. That was a bit of an explosive start, but Blabber has his issues as well. So, like, I don't know, he'll probably be a top half jungler for a period of time. He's a non-import slot. Like, I would expect him, unless there's something that goes wrong or he starts struggling next split, hit some kind of wall, I think you would want to hold on to him for at least a little while.
Yeah, I've actually only recently become aware of how much Speak has been like trying to kind of absorb some of that TSM fandom. It's like everyone else is left now. He's like, yes, I will collect all of this for myself quickly. There's a vacuum that I can fill. So I'm hopeful that he does that because I think TSM needs that. Obviously, there are going to be other players that come in, and Huni's got a big personality and all that. But I like this take. The only problem is Variance. Don't you feel like Perks is going to become like the poster child of the LCS? As ironic as that is.
I think there is the potential for that, but in terms of, because obviously he's already such a big name. I mean, if we were to look at it right now, who's the biggest name in LCS, it might well be Perks, just because he's so famous from his time in EU. Yeah. But in looking to the future and who will sort of NA fans rally around as their hero, assuming TSM has success, which is still a bit of a question mark at this point. I feel like Spico sort of fits the bill better than anyone currently.
So to be clear, you're saying that when you say he'll be the most popular, he's going to like grow the most, or he'll just be the most popular? Like in a year or two from now, he'll have the most engagement. He's like 19,
19?
19, 18, yeah, something like that.
I mean, yeah, like he has.
Well, can I get clarification from the caller? Do you mean he will be the most popular, flat out, most engagements kind of thing, or you mean he will grow the most, or like what do you mean?
I think it's sort of a bit of both. I think he's going to become one of the most flat out popular players through being a young, successful NA based player, if that makes sense. If that's not too broad.
No, I mean, I agree. I think he could become one of the breakout young stars, along with Tactical, FBI, some of these players who had pretty good years last year. Hopefully they continue them. But like in a world where TSM is successful, the person who's going to grow the most from that is actually Huni. And I know he's already really popular, but like that dude is a magnet for attention. When he's playing well, he's so fun to watch. He's hilarious. He's awesome. And like people fluctuate on him quite a bit, whether they love him or hate him. But, you know, if they're doing well, Spica's not going to be the main story on that team, unfortunately. It'll be Bjergsen's coach. It'll be Spica. I mean, it'll be Sword Art joining. It'll be Huni's, you know, return to glory or whatever. So if things go well, I don't even think he'll be the most popular player on his team, let alone in the league. When that's before you get into, I don't know, Core JJ, Jensen, Perks, and Licorice, and all these other players who have such a leg up already.
The thing that's exciting to me about Spica is he's 19, which means let's say he plays as long as Doublelift plays. Now, Doublelift has played pretty long in terms of the age that he's retiring at, but 8 years of Spica to come would be, you know, it's crazy to think about that. I will be almost 40 years old if Spica 8 years and I am still covering this stuff and all that. That is depressing to think about, actually. What is that face, Mark? Are you thinking about your own age? What? Or
I'm imagining you at 40.
I'm going to be a fox, okay? Men in my family age incredibly gracefully.
We don't lose any hair in the Zimmerman family.
I don't. All the men. Anyway, so I think it's an interesting argument. You know, the only thing is like Tactical also is really great up and coming talent. FBI is pretty young now that Oceania is North America. He's a North American talent. You know, I guess we could say that. Like there are other candidates, but I guess and Tactical perhaps with Team Liquid is positioned. I think most people will power rank TL above TSM for next year. Mark, is that a safe assessment? That's going to be most people's ranking of the two?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the two teams right now on paper, I'd go TL.
Yeah, and so I do think like you are, if you look at Tactical or Spica, Tactical is probably better set up for success. So he kind of fits a lot of the same stuff as you. The only thing is he's kind of a quiet dude.
I was going to say, the one thing I'll give Spica is of the newer, younger players, he has his own personality. He has this like kind of almost like surfer bro energy a little bit that I really like. And so
kind of a callback to the old TSM days, to be honest.
Yeah, a bit of the Bay Life attitude, which I really like.
Yeah.
I think another thing, which, I mean, this may be just coming through the perspective of a long-standing TSM fan, you know, one of the Horde, but he had one of the, I think, harshest sort of trials by fire coming into his professional career when he was, I think it was summer 2019, when he was brought in to replace Grig or Acadian, or maybe both, I can't quite remember, and they didn't make it to Worlds when they got beat by Clutch. And as you would expect from a team which has such high expectations of TSM, he was just slaughtered online, and he took a little bit of time off the main team and then came back, and I think he's been performing at a higher level than he was before. So he has been through a bit of a rough time in terms of his career already, and not say that means he's going to go, you know, much higher in the future. I think he will, but there's no assurance there. I just think it's important to note that it was a very rough start for him.
Yeah. Actually, Kelby, I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. You follow more esports than I do, maybe one or two more. How it feels like esports as a whole is fairly young, and there have not been very many generational switches. Like in so many esports, you have
Oh.
a ton of the old dudes that are still either really popular or really good or whatever. I mean, in comparison to other esports, what has that? Where in other esports have you seen this kind of handoff of like really popular players retiring and new folks coming up? Has that happened much even in Dota? Because even in Dota, it feels like RTZ and people like that are still really popular.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really good question, Travis. And I'd have to put some like thought and time
Because like
into it.
Twitch as in StarCraft, that's a terrifying example. I don't want StarCraft to be our example of how things go down.
So I was going to throw in one that some of chat's doing, which is Melee, and it has had a lot more ups and downs, but I think League does have some mirroring in that. Like there was a dark period in like 2016, 2017. Like Ken and Isaiah and holy shit, I'm blanking on the other Chillin and whoever Chillin's friend is, but whatever. If you watch the Smash doc, you know what I'm talking about. There was periods, as in. So like that scene has gone through a couple, but
it is. I mean, when I think Melee, I just still think like Mango and all those guys. Were they not?
Well, that's because you don't actually follow the scene.
I know,
Right,
but
right.
were those not the founding members of
No.
like? Oh, okay.
No.
They're the second generation, and Leffen's
Gotcha.
like third or something. Like if you wanted to do it by generations,
Sure.
and they've been around for around 15, 20 years now, or like that scene has, I guess you would say. Yeah, they came in at the second generation.
Yeah, I mean it's if you're doing it by that qualifications, then obviously like even Quake, CS, Halo, all these other scenes have gone through that sort of like generational shift. I was thinking it more of in the context of like current era games that were like at one point or have continued to be tier 1 esports since 2010,
Yeah,
which is a really
like Dota,
limited list.
CS:GO,
Yeah.
games like that. Yeah.
And like then like the slashers and DJ Wheats of the world are like, oh, that's unfair. You're missing so much context and history, and that's perfectly valid. But
Esports started when I created State League, so I don't know.
League
why.
invented esports.
it is really like I think that it is a different era, like and it's the beginning of like the
those are the
The
primordial
live
times.
streaming era,
Yeah.
like
Right.
was its own thing. Like
Yeah.
the fucking watching on LimeWire or whatever people had to do in the fucking
Yeah.
OG days.
Yeah.
It's not really comparable to be
Dish-
like, oh yeah,
dish
that guy's
satellite
a
television.
superstar, fatality,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or whatever.
Current day esports professionals are making a living, and back in the day it was more of like not that there wasn't the one or two like dudes who could like scrape by and stuff, and even
Listen, these old people
Sorry.
don't watch the show. We don't have to keep consoling them on like.
Yeah. But the last thing that I was going to say as well, not to like continue this topic too much further, but I think one of the things that Spica and Tactical have going for them is that I agree with you, Travis. There is no doubt in my mind that Perks will come in as the most popular person in NA for the next, but probably the indefinite future. But I feel like there is an opportunity for an NA player to develop themselves as more of like the face of North American League, because I don't think Perks can ever be seen as the face of NALCS.
Right.
Because of his previous history, obviously in accolades in Europe, and he's certainly not going to repeat them here. He's here for the money, so let's be clear about that.
He's here for the free trips to Worlds and the money.
He
doesn't need
did
to
his
fight.
time. He deserves to get that paper now. It's a great way to ride off into the sunset when you're like, I had a really good shot at Worlds and winning. We might have choked against FPX, but let's collect our payday now. So.
And to hop on that, I mean, like whoever takes North America to the greatest heights, will become the face. And I think when C9 kind of did that, like maybe Licorice was beginning to be part of that, more sneaky and maybe probably more Jensen. But like if anyone does have a big run, that's how we always talk about success is the ultimate thing for popularity. So if any of these newer players are the one who reaches those heights, they'll skyrocket. Assuming they're doing streaming and other shit to actually grow their brand.
You cannot be a bystander in your own story.
So true.
Variance, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we move on to the next caller?
Just the standard Alienware. All you guys.
Why are you laughing, Mark? Variance is doing a great job right now. Continue, sir.
I'm trying my best here. I'm trying my best.
No, I don't. Mark
You're
was
doing
laughing
good.
at something else. I think
Mark
earlier.
is
It's
fucking it up for
unrelated.
you.
It's unrelated. Sorry, I'll
We'll
explain
find out in a
after.
second. Anyway,
Maybe you
so
should mute yourself when our caller is doing you the great service of shouting out sponsors on broadcast.
And he's gone.
Very sorry.
Yeah,
Continue.
just shout out to Doublelift for being really good at his job for years,
Yep.
basically.
Thank you so much for the call.
Thank you.
Mark,
My
do you want to
cat
share with the class?
walked up under the table, and I have my knee up, and so like my foot's kind of like hanging off the lip of my chair, and he just came up and just started rubbing his face on my stinky foot, and he was loving it, and it tickled a little bit, and it looked really cute, and it was kind of like, dude, that can't smell good. It was a triple threat that made me giggle a little bit.
Do you do cat TikToks, Mark?
I don't do any TikToks, but if I did, they would all be cat things.
I
'cause
posted my
that's why-
second TikTok in this past week, and it popped off.
What does that mean? Tell me the numbers. I want analytics.
6,000 views, even though I only had like 130 followers when I posted it. So I feel like that's pretty good.
What was it?
It was a meme about Peter retiring.
Oh,
And yeah,
wow.
Travis listening this job.
Yeah, really cool. Really cool.
As great as your fucking cat rubbing its face against your foot. Where really, this is, oh, he left. Anyway, Moonfish, thank you for the subs. Max Strickton, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Jay, thank you for the Prime. Jordan gifted a sub. Nimguzipi, Norvek, Yesterdog, Haramos, Purple Ray Q, Inuber. I think I got Inuber. Horny Jill for Kaisa sent 500 bits. Which, by the way, somebody decried that name in the YouTube comments.
Someone
and they
had
said,
to explain to their grandma.
Yeah. Oh,
about-
you saw that comment as well. Yes.
Yeah,
like-
yeah.
Now I have to explain to my grandma what horny jail for Kaisa. I'm not sure I believe that, but thank you to everybody. Rennie the Croc, Medic, who hit us up with a 10-month sub. Appreciate it, Medic. And Smoke Dog. Oh, Medic, congrats on all the success you've been having in the the Hades speedrunning thing. That's pretty cool. Vasily, thank you, Vasily, for joining the show. Where do you want to talk, or where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Fairfield, Connecticut.
Airfield, Connecticut. Is there an
Fairfield,
airfield?
sorry.
Where? Fairfield?
Fairfield, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
What, interesting. What do you want to talk about on the show?
All right, so I think that basically Sword Art joining TSM is Huni's last chance to ever, like, win NA or have any sort of success in NA. And I think if this TSM roster doesn't do well, Huni's either going to retire or he's going to be on, like, 9th, 10th place teams again forever.
I do agree that here's where I will agree. I will agree this is a shocking redemption opportunity for Huni, because I did not think he was going to get another one. And I don't mean that to slam him. It's just like, rarely do you see players who have a lot of success drop off for a while, play on some teams that do not place very well, and end up not playing on those teams for a while, and then suddenly end up back on like a LCS finals contending roster, right? Or one of the big three. Like that, I don't think anyone could have predicted this for Huni, other than perhaps.
So the one thing I'll
Beardson.
go back for Huni as well on is that pretty much every player, when he's getting slammed by the community about this stuff, pretty much every pro I see at least tweeting about it is like, he's not bad, you know. So I think behind the scenes they might have a different feel on.
You're
Huni
saying
than-
pro play? I have not seen. I'm not disagreeing with you. I have not seen this before. You're saying
It's
pro
not, like,
players usually come to
overwhelming.
bat for him?
I've seen a fair amount of pro players, not like a ton, but people be like, you know, all these people judging Huni or whatever, you know, like thinking he's washed, like you're idiots kind of thing. I've seen a couple of those kind of takes.
Because the thing I consistently think about with this Huni news is like, I think it could have just as easily been Hanser. Like, I'm not saying that these teams, like, some people are going to argue Hanser's is good. Some people are going to say Huni's way better and Hanser's washed. Whatever. I'm not interested in that conversation. But, like, I think people would be about equally surprised to see Hanser end up on that team as they are seeing Huni end up on that team. And the fact that Hanser is not playing, like, you just as easily could have seen Huni not start and seen Haunter on TSM. Is my whole point, right? Like, it's just crazy that this is kind of the world where it's like either could have not started at all or ended up on this like insanely popular, finals contender team. So it's just wild to me to see this, and I'm happy for him. He's a great guy, great personality for the league, but it is pretty wild.
To the caller's point about like Sword Art and stuff, like I do think weirdly enough that while the talent lost from Doublelift is probably going to be worse for, I mean, who knows how Lost is going to do, but at least on purely established talent level, it's a downgrade. But I could see a world where this does work better to a stronger topside playstyle, though they did already do that with Broken Blade last split, so I don't think that Doublelift necessarily couldn't. But I think Sword Art would have roamed more than Bio did. Bio actually didn't roam a ton. They weren't always the most effective. So I think Sword Art might have been out of lane a little bit more going forward. But maybe this makes it a little bit easier when there's less strong opinions on how to play the game. I assume Spica will be pretty lax. He seems like a pretty chill dude. Huni, from what I know, has relatively strong opinions. Doublelift have relatively strong opinions. I'm sure PoE has decently strong opinions, just based off how he talks about his builds and things like that. He seems like he has a way he wants to play. So maybe taking out a Cook in some regard will help. Even though Lost, as far as I know, in Academy did preferred playing strong side, I believe.
I mean, can I
he's at least less of a voice.
Can I hijack this conversation a little bit to say this is an insane year for TSM? Like, they have lost, like, literally the fact that Spica, sorry, no pun intended, literally the fact that Spica is the longest standing member of this team is crazy. TSM has historically always had just like their turnover rate in most roles is not that high. They retain talent, jungle, as I know, the defense against, but like they've retained talent for many years at a time, and the talent that they had were like huge names. I just like, this is definitely the craziest year for TSM, and I am so fascinated to see how it goes. I don't know. I'm curious if they bleed a ton of fans before the start of the split. I'm curious if people are willing to stick with it. I don't know.
Yeah, to that point, I think they had 3 top laners: Dyrus, Haunter, Broken Blade. I think they had 3 80 carries: Chaos, Wild Turtle, Doublelift, right? And then they had 2 mids in Red
Sven
Dream.
too.
Sven is the other.
Oh, Sven. I forgot Sven. Okay,
Don't
so
worry,
4.
I'm here to fill in the gaps on the league.
Yeah,
knowledge.
the Rain Man, not LCS period though. Chaos at least played before he got benched in the LCS. But yeah, jungle and support were the 2 roles that always fluctuated quite a lot. Oh, Kabi. Okay, Jesus Christ, there's more IDs than I thought too.
But
okay.
if you told, let's put it this way, I
falling
don't have the stats on in front of me. I guess I'd have to ask Tim or something. But I would bet money that TSM is the roster that has changed the least over the years, has had the fewest number of players, especially if you discount jungle, over any other team, like the most stable, I guess. And so the fact that this is one of the most stable teams that is just like blowing up is bonkers. And I'm so curious to see how that affects the organization. I'm so curious how that affects to TSM fandom, especially because I don't have the data to support this, but certainly it feels anecdotally like TSM fans constitute the largest amount of like casual fan base, right? Like if you expand out the LCS fan base pool from just like the Redditors and stuff, and I know TSM has a huge fucking subreddit and they're really popular amongst the hardcores, but I think casual players are very likely to be, or casual fans are very likely to be TSM fans. And so it's just, I'm curious how much of those casual fans are retained, casual TSM fans, etc. So I don't know. It's going to be really curious to sort of see how this goes. Everybody, I love it whenever I suggest something and people just shout out other teams randomly. C9 has seen a ton of change over the years.
C9 was one of the best orgs at changing talent while still performing highly.
Yeah, for a couple of years they had a very stable roster, and then they started doing. The meme for recently has been that Jack gets great talent and then trades them all off and loses the offseason. So it's crazy to me that the chat is like, well, C9 is. Anyway.
Also, I mean, there was tons of memes when Reaper, benched everybody. Everybody got all mad. So they've always had the willing.
Yeah.
Other teams don't.
CLG is not it either, guys. Sorry. Anyway, so I guess. Sorry, what was our original topic?
We was talking about Sword Art. I just want to talk a little bit more about Sword Art
Oh, yeah,
and why
sorry.
I think he's critical to the Huni thing.
Go for it.
Because this is like based slightly off of third-hand intervention, basically. But so I heard Whippo talking basically from his conversation with Reckless, and he said that in Fnatic, a lot of the times Reignover was the one forcing Huni to take the resources and carry. So Huni wouldn't ask for that much; he'd just sort of do his thing, and Reignover would be like, "Okay, I'm going to camp your lane, and you're going to carry this game super hard." So I think Sword Art is a really strong voice, and he definitely was important in Suning's Worlds run. And I think that Reignover's style is going to give the potential for Huni to find the sort of form he had before, where he was actually world class and not just sort of messing around in NA. I think having that strong veteran presence is going to be way more important than Huni just having decent players around him. Some of on Clutch, for instance, yeah, he occasionally was carrying games and they ultimately worlds, but I don't think that really anyone on that Clutch roster had the sort of authoritative voice that Sword Art can bring and that can unlock Huni.
I don't know if I buy the take that there needs to be a veteran or authority voice to unlock Huni. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm in on that.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I'm you want to talk about they had great synergy, they worked together, Reignover had a good feel for when, he could carry games. I buy all that, but I don't think it's without a voice like that, Huni wasn't good at it, because on those Clutch days, Lyra actually had the highest jungle proximity in the league, and he often went top, and Demonte went top a fair amount. He was pretty active on roaming and things like that. They definitely had a play style that catered to Huni a fair amount. And if you're going to snowball topside, having a really smart jungler doing that is a huge factor. It's also 2v1s back then, and I can say, having played against them and watched their scrims and whatnot, they were just smarter about the fucking game back then than a lot of the other teams were. They knew how to snowball topside in 2v1 situations, 1v1 situations, whatever the map situation was, they knew how to exploit you, and they were really good at it. Even when you went with Pobelter, when they were on the Immortals squad, it's a different game, so I don't even know how much that can really translate. But I do agree having a roaming support like Sword Art will enhance this, what we are assuming to be TSM's playstyle.
To me, part of it is I just think that Huni has, throughout his career, even a little bit on Fnatic, but a lot less so, he's always been inconsistent, right? And so I think, I don't know exactly how I want this, but obviously Power of Evil is a Raw. I don't think anybody's going to doubt that. The guy doesn't lose lane basically ever. And I think having Sword Art as that roaming support, if he builds good synergy with Spica, which I guess is sort of an asterisk. If Spica and Sword Art can't work together, then you're not going to get anywhere. But I think they have the ability to make Huni into a more consistent player rather than somebody who's known for overextending all the time and just sort of randomly dying sometimes, even on champions that he's skilled on, Gangplank or whatever.
Yeah, Sword Art or not, I do think I agree with your initial take, or at least the non-Sword Art component of it, which is this is kind of like a do or die year for Huni. If Huni ends up getting traded, or they have to pull in a different top laner halfway through the year or something, it's going to be tough, I think, for him. I think people will feel like he's had a lot of chances over the past couple years and then wasn't able to deliver. So I am curious for sure to see how things go. And maybe you're right. Maybe Sword Art is the missing key for it. I don't know. Anyway, is there anything that you want to shout out before we move on to our next caller?
Sure. So first of all, I want to use my platform to beg Riot for the OGN format to come back in some way, because it was great. And also, while we're in Doublelift's eulogy episode, I want everyone in chat who's a new fan to go watch the old Sheriff Caitlyn interview, because it was hilarious.
Oh, man.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for the call.
That's
Thank
something
you.
I could definitely be burned from the internet.
You want to grab our next caller, Mark?
Yeah.
Living in Tomorrow, thank you for the Prime. Bronze Star, thank you for the 100 bits. Cap'n Slugger, thank you for the Prime. And Dr. Noli, thank you for the 2 months as well. How are you doing, Kelby?
I'm doing great. Now I'm just thinking about Peter's infamous sup from the
True.
interview that was referenced.
Indigo Fog, thank you for the 9 months. Thank you to everybody who's subbing. I appreciate it. It's nice to see the support. You know, it's painful to see a lack of it. So when people do so, Pirate Noodles is here. Pirate Noodles. Wait, have you been on recently, or did you? What? Why do I know your name?
Yeah, I was on
on.
last week.
Okay. Where are you calling from?
California.
California. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Pretty much, with the loss of players like Sneak, Doublelift, I think appeal and
You're cutting in and out a little bit. Sneaky.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a
Sneaky
microphone getting
Bjerg.
closer or what, but
here.
Yeah.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better. I think. Keep going.
So with the loss of players like Sneaky, Doublelift, Bjerg, LCS will never be able to appeal to, maintain fan bases to the same degree as in the past. With the league losing a lot of term members, there's no real reason for over, as there's no city or orgs or teams like there are in traditional sports with Steelers and Lakers always having a really consistent base because of the city they're in.
Sorry, it sounds like you're saying it's gonna. You did cut out a little bit still, but it sounds like you're saying that there's not a great way to retain the fans because the fans are not attached to cities or whatever. So we might see like a pretty big fan dip because these big names are leaving.
Yeah, I think the thing that made up for it in the past was franchise players kind of acting as a glue and keeping the viewers entertained. But with them moving out of the scene, it's going to be very hard for the teams to maintain the viewers that they're able to keep.
I want to throw this to Kelby and sort of get his take again because you follow a lot of different esports. You used to be running one of these orgs. So what do you kind of think of all this?
I've always personally hated the idea of attaching sentiment to teams in esports in a similar vein that we do for traditional sports, where teams are, a lot of your fandom is prescribed based off of where you grew up regionally and like the team that you're supporting and stuff. I also don't necessarily think that I think that Bjerg and Peter and Sneaky and these really prolific players and big personalities in the league scene leaving hurts in the short term. There are still fans who follow NALCS, who follow the league, and there is an opportunity now for new voices to come in and fill these spots and to take the fans that these guys have left behind. I don't think that because you're a Doublelift fan and Doublelift retires, you instantly lose all attraction or appeal in watching NALCS. You know what I mean? But you certainly are probably looking for somebody new to follow and become a fan of. I think that the league's popularity and team's popularity is the same that it's always been. The state of the game, how many people are playing in the base, how is the game being supported by the owners and Riot, and I don't see League falling off because I don't think that there is a real competitor in the short term. I think that Valve has made it incredibly apparent over time, and not that Dota's in a position to challenge League really, but Valve is clearly not out there to contest, and until League loses its luster or attraction from the audience base and player base, you go on Twitch, League is still in the top of the directory, not the number one spot, but in the top 3 or 5 slots all the time. Until the game is not popular anymore, I think that it will still obviously retain a strong audience, and there's going to be an opportunity for the speakers and other people in the scene to take the fans that Sneaky and Bjerg and Peter left behind.
Here's what I will say. Oh, go ahead, Mark, actually.
Yeah, I was going to take the other side a little bit. I mean, I agree that someone who is interested in the scene doesn't suddenly disappear because their favorite player retired. And I also agree about the point about lack of competition from other major esports. But I will say, I think some people do drift away slowly. It's like, drowning, like you need like a life raft to cling on to when your player that was kind of your main focus disappears. And if there isn't one, I think people don't necessarily go to Dota or something, but they just start, doing other things. Like I know I used to watch way more streams than I do now, and it's not like I don't play games. I just don't watch those streams anymore.
Yeah.
And so like I think what would happen more likely is that like people just start reading books, or they go watch more anime, or, like you just fill your time in a different way. Not necessarily like you go to another game. So I could see a world where losing literally your two most popular players in the league, getting a new one, and I saw that. I see it.
Corey JJ, thank you for the raid of 2,000 people. That's very hype. I'm going to take
there's
the
your
stance
savior
that,
right there of the North
Corey
American
JJ
League of
is the
Legends
reason
teams.
LCS will continue to survive. He's gonna carry this. Actually, I mean, in the off season, he's been really good at doing all these.
Any pro player who raids our stream will instantly be touted as the savior of North America. We'll talk about how much people need to follow them.
Core's like the only one to do it in like 50 episodes or something. So
we're wide open for selling out.
Yes. So I'm gonna fit kind of somewhere in the middle. My biggest concern is fan sentiment towards LCS, the product, right now is pretty poor. I think this year was a really tough year. The fact that, for instance, LEC, and some of this is like not necessarily even LCS's fault. The fact that LEC was able to go into the studio and like do that stuff, and then the LCS stream would start. And but some of it I do think can have been critical of the broadcast and some of the decisions they've made. And I do think I bet you the LCS folks really wish they'd had any kind of heads up that Bjergsen and Peter were going to retire this year, because normally I think this stuff is telegraphed a little bit more in traditional sports or whatever. The fact that like nobody I think would have made this prediction at the start of this year. I know I would not have predicted Doublelifts, and I think Bjergsen seemed even more out of left field. So there's not been much time to prepare other names. The LCS leaned heavily on Bjergsen and Doublelift. I mean, I did that video today talking about old guard retiring, what it means, and the fact that we've had so many people shift over. And like there's just tons of footage I was able to find from like 2019 summer finals, and like these guys kept winning. The fact that Peter was at all these finals just meant that like the narrative, the story was so much about these two guys, and we haven't really done a great job of building up alternatives or other stars.
And to be fair, yeah, I mean, I agree with that point. But to be fair, a lot of the narratives, even for newer players, like dug into these other players. Like when Stixegg came up, for example, it was that, he replaced Doublelift, and he was his hero was Doublelift, and he got to play him in the finals, and he beat him, and like Tactical replaced Doublelift, and they get to play. And
right.
Like so much of the other players' stories are tied to the longer standing players. So it's
and they'd go off and
you're out from under the shadow now.
These big drive episodes, and then the player would not compete. It would be like Damonte would have this great year, goes to Worlds, and then spring would start, and he's not on a starting roster. Or Golden Glue, or Acadian. Like you could go look at these drive episodes. I think we should have known that perhaps Bjergsen was retiring when they did a drive episode on him. I think at the start of this year, and so it's like. I also don't even entirely fault. I mean, I think again the broadcast can be making. There's a lot of opportunity, content-wise, but some of the narratives have just unfortunately not panned out. And so, I think it is very lucky for LC. I think two things. One, it is very lucky for LCS and like in terms of the broadcast and Riot and all the people that are doing this, that Cloud9 and TSM and TL did go big. Because you can kind of think of Sword Art, Perks, and Alphari as the new Pokemon starters, right? Like, yeah, we lost Doublelift and Bjergsen, but now these are the big three kings that are coming from over internationally, while we're also building up rookies like FBI, Tactical, Spica. But I also think, look, LCS has to fucking step up to the plate and change some of the opinions of the product itself. I don't think that Riot can, overnight fix the competitive side. But people need to feel like the content next year is way better than it has been, and they need to feel like the branding is big, and like a lot of the stuff that LCS is doing is making the right changes, and the content is good and all that stuff. Because right now people are not necessarily happy with the broadcast as it is. So I think that's the big thing. Is like, I agree with Kelby. There's big opportunities here for LCS to continue being really big. That being said, the time that LCS can sort of rest on its laurels and ride the highs of yesteryear is completely over. You got to start really rebooting. So,
yeah, I think to add on that, I think especially in North America as a reflection of the player base, I believe, and based on my own anecdotal experience, that player base is the largest single contributing factor to viewership of an esports title. We are behind Europe, we are behind China, we are behind Korea in terms of active players, talent that is coming into our own ecosystem, and in turn, I think attention and demand and viewership for our products. So LEC did a tremendous job. I think that you're right, Travis, that the LCS product in general will only benefit from being better. But as long as League is a successful title, I think it will have fans that watch it. And if people stop playing the game, like I stopped watching LCS when I stopped playing it, it's very, very difficult to continue to have the same level of engagement as a fan that you do when you're actively playing the title. Especially, like, you can step away from Rocket League and come back and the game's the same. I lived with a pro team for 2 years, despite our success, had a very high level understanding of like the game and how it operated, and like I'm gone for like a year from the game and coming back, it's just like it's a completely different viewership experience. I watched a shit ton of Worlds this year, but my viewership experience is fundamentally different than what it was when I was actively playing the game. And I'm still a fan, I'm still watching to a certain degree, but not nearly the same as when I was playing League, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Pirate Noodles. Again, sorry, we've hijacked your take a little bit, but do you have any thoughts on any of this stuff?
The one thing that I want to say is I'm interested in how the teams are going to react to this. Like you guys said, a couple of teams are just using their to kind of buy new franchise players like perks, but there's other teams like FlyQuest who are kind of trying to brand themselves as like this environmental team, which I think is, and they're kind of using different ways to appeal to different people, and that I think is a good way of kind of building up their brands and creating some sort of hype around their teams.
Yeah, Pirate Noodles, I would say one of the things that I really like about FlyQuest and liked originally about EG coming to League is a team actually trying to establish a brand and be a differentiating factor in the market compared to what is the difference between C9 and TSM and Team Liquid and CLG, like from a brand value and perspective. Like they're really not that different. EG was like, we're gonna be the bad guys, we're gonna be evil, and then like they just kind of walked away from it. Is my feeling. Like they're like, oh, we're like the friendly bad guys now, and like cool and stuff. But like FlyQuest has very clearly chosen a lane that they're sticking to and like doing thematic pushes across all of their stuff for their content, and like what this org stands for. They have a very solid brand that they are attaching themselves to. I think that you're absolutely right that other esports orgs could really benefit from doing the same sort of exercise. And it's not easy to do, but I think that FlyQuest is like a great example of somebody who has benefited from it tremendously.
Yeah. Even teams like Dignitas and Immortals, I fear, are becoming the new old FlyQuest, where it's just like, what is Dig? What is Immortals? I don't know. Diamond, now a FlyQuest player in chat, says, "Go green, #live green." I don't know if live green is that you need to. There might be some brand lessons you need to take on the FlyQuest side, Diamond, because I don't think live green is. Anyway, Pirate Noodles, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we move on to our last caller?
Shout out Riot Games for creating such balanced items and
Very good. Well,
you
thank you.
You know you're a lab rat, right? This is what preseason is. If you choose to queue up during preseason, you are signing your life away as a lab rat.
No, Kane one trick. I love it.
Oh wait, you're fucking stoked. You can't.
Yeah,
complain.
exactly. Both of them are broken. Like, it's great.
Thanks so much, Pirate. See you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, on to our last caller. Thank you to Core for the raid, Dr. Noli, Indigo Frog, the Idea PC, Easy Stay Safe, and Irish Blizzard for the 13 months. If you came in on the Core JJ raid and you don't know what the show is, it is a call-in show wherein Mark and myself, and usually a guest, take calls from the community. So the voice that you're hearing that is not indicated on the screen is a caller.
Is a random.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here as much as I appreciate Kyle0808 for gifting 8 subs and getting himself to 850 gifted subs lifetime.
Jesus.
One of whom he gifted to the Chandrian, which is a reference from a book series that will never be finished. Rye is here. Rye, where are you calling from?
The Bay Area.
The Bay Area. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So I was gonna talk about the other caller just prior brought it up. You know, two great minds think alike. Talking about definitely how the fan base in NA is gonna go down for a lot, especially like OG viewers. And then especially because my friend and I were talking about how we kind of hate NA right now because we consistently just keep on importing a bunch of people, and it's like it's hard to want to root for these teams when you look at them and you're like, is this an NA team or is this an import team? Like, I'm gonna be blunt. The only reason why I rooted for TL was because they had the Doublelift, and then they had I didn't mind Ole. Xmithy was cool. They had Pole Belter for sure, and they had Impact, not bad. Then slowly you kick out Xmithy. Oh no, sorry, you kick out Pole Belter you kick out Ole for Core. Yeah, he's amazing, but he's still an import. Okay, then you kick out Xmithy for Psygrave Brox, and then kick out Pole Belter for Jensen. Yeah, they're better, but it's like you're not NA, and it just hurts.
Did you think Ole was NA?
Say again?
Did you think Ole was NA? North America?
It was like, I guess more so it was his personality and why so many people enjoyed Ole. It was like he actually tried to assimilate to the culture. He tried to respect it. He still kept himself being like Korean, but he enjoyed it.
Do you think Core JJ doesn't respect our culture?
Okay, let's come on.
I'm interpreting
I'm taking it to the NA,
not the specifics. I understand the spirit of this is our server. These are the people who came up and are trying to bring pride to our region, playing well, and it's not people who are chasing the fatter paycheck or even if you want to be a less pessimistic view, yeah, they're great players, but they're not from the North American server. They're people who are kind of carrying us in a sense. Like we're not doing it ourselves. It's these other guys who we're relying on, kind of thing.
Exactly, and like. I kind of hate that. It's because, money talks. Yeah, they're better, etc. And NA is very diverse. Yeah, but in a way, it's kind of like, can we raise up these talents? And we've seen that we actually do have great NA talent. We're just not giving them a chance in a realistic aspect. Like one of the callers said, Spica, he did not have a great chance. Who expected some rookie coming on, first time going in the finals? Like, what do you expect from him? Yeah, he came out great, but like back then, that was such a hard position to put him in.
And I have to say, just because Twitch chat was joking about this at the beginning, this is indeed not Speaker calling.
What is that noise?
I'm sorry.
Rye, can you not tap whatever you're tapping? We can hear it.
Oh, sorry, that's my mom. I'll just
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, mute when you're not cooking then. So the other, apparently this is not Speaka hyping himself up, just to verify that, because some people were joking that you sounded a little bit like Speaka at the start of the call.
Okay, I want to start off by saying that I love this caller's energy and take. I think that this is the go-to caller of the night. I also really strongly agree with his assessment and opinion. There are team owners present in the NALCS who will not be named, but are publicly on the record as saying that they don't feel that imported rosters in a North American environment are a hindrance to the popularity of a team, which I vehemently disagree with to an extreme degree. I think that we have seen across the history of multiple esports titles, StarCraft most notably, that while I think that I said earlier that the subscription of like localized region fandom for traditional sports doesn't work in esports, I think that nationality is a very strong pulling factor for regions and fandom. I think it would be a tremendous mistake for the NALCS to lift import restrictions and to allow full import rosters. Some imports, absolutely great. As the caller mentioned, America, one of the great things about this country, the few remaining. Anyways, not to get on that path. It's a melting pot, right? There are so many diverse cultures and backgrounds and everything represented in this country. I think that, you know, we shouldn't necessarily strive to be like Europe and have like 0 imports or something like that. But if you allowed full import rosters, how quickly and how many of the top teams do you think would shell out for full import rosters? I do not think it would be a good idea for the popularity of the league. I think you really need to have a path for local talent to become big players in your scene, or you lose your region's identity. And like what the NA memes just become so much worse. At least we go and we fail with like our own talent on the world stage. What if we are just paying tens of millions of dollars a year for full import rosters that just fucking go and fail internationally? Like it takes the current issues of this region and just multiplies it. I agree fully. I fucking hate the idea of so many players in the region becoming imported now, or the idea of import restrictions being.
I see Jack in the chat who is disagreeing with this.
I know, because Jack is the guy who is publicly on the record that I was referencing.
Well, that's what I was going to say is I mean, he's not the only one, to be fair. I think Steve also said this on the Thorn interview. I don't, no offense to Jack, but I don't want LCS to be, I don't know what his current Overwatch team is, but his first Overwatch team, the Spitfire, were 5 Korean players playing for London. That just, I have a hard time with that. Like, I get that roster was probably pretty good competitively, but
they won a championship.
I would struggle to, is my mic is clipping?
It's clipping for me. I don't know if it is for Kelby. Sorry, I was trying to
think
sneaky about that.
I liked LMQ a lot. I am happy that LMQ is not a thing anymore. I think it's actually really great. I love the diversity of the LCS. I think it is actually an asset to us that you can have these teams that are composed of players from all over the world. I quite like that. I think it's stupid or silly. Rye, I don't know if this was kind of your take. Rye, I just saw you mute yourself. But I don't know if your argument was going to be that like we should just not have any imported players. But I like when we have a lot of different players from different regions, and it's fun, and you get like this diversity and cultures, and it's, I don't know. I just think it's really tough if like what happens if we lift these restrictions and the 3 teams we send to Worlds are 15 Korean players or 10 Korean players and 5 Chinese players, all on on separate teams. Like it just becomes really hard, I think, for fans to connect with that, and I don't think that is. We all have our different answers to the problem. I would argue, no offense to Jack, that it is a lazy answer to the problem. To just say the way to solve this is just to import 5 players from another region.
I'll let Rye hop in here a little bit to give his counter, but then I'll have my own counter as well.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry that my mom was cooking in the background. I had to mute. I didn't want to.
You're good.
You're good.
You're fine, dude.
Basically, like, I would agree. I was about to bring up LMQ. Like, I remember when I saw that, I was just so confused. And I would agree with Travis. Like, I don't want, like, to not import, because it, in a way, kind of does bring a little difference to the league. But the way we're importing is more of like, oh my god, this guy's the best player ever. Let's give him $1 million and him come over every single time. We saw that with Piglet. We see that right now with Perks. And it's like we again have said we've been side grading. It's like we're not really upgrading because we don't take in consideration the communication with English and stuff. And I guess that's where it's just like, it just hurts where again like I see so many players that are just equally as good. Like we were talking about Hanser and Huni earlier, that they could have been on the same. He could have been on TSM, you know. And I think definitely one thing I was rooting for TSM again was not because of Doublelift, was because it did feel like that 2016 roster again, where it was like, oh my god, except for Svenskeren, we had an NA roster that could represent NA, that is from NA, that can do well for NA. That's essentially.
See, I care less about that. So I would disagree with you on a couple things here. I think Core JJ is not a side grade. I think when we brought Bjergsen over, he was not a side grade. I don't think Jensen is a side grade. I think there are great examples of players who are not side grades. Perks and Alfari are not going to be side grades. I do agree sometimes LCS owners, probably not the smarter LCS owners, have a tendency to bring over random ass players from other regions that like have not had domestic success there, and then continue to not have domestic success here, and that is a little questionable. But I don't think that's any different than picking up a player who is washed in the LCS, you know what I mean, or a player who hasn't had success for a while. So I would ask you this, right? There are several teams next year that are going to be running players that are all North American residents. Are you excited for those players? Because you seem a little skeptical on like, the teams for like Jack for getting Perks and people like that.
Well, yeah, for sure. I would definitely agree. And like, I guess to be honest, it's because, I definitely been a long time Doublelift fan since season 2. Definitely been following you and then remembering Kelby and stuff and Marks as well and everything. Just all the OG. So we're like, in a way, I think it's kind of me, like someone was saying, the generation switch. That's the part of me trying to let that go. I am rooting for, in a way, because they got someone who, again, was I don't want to say bottom tier region, but on the lower end, brought up Jose Diodo, and they have an NA roster. I'm rooting for the underdogs. I always like the underdogs because no one's expecting them to like do super well. And the only thing I just wish that FlyQuest, which could have done well when they set Wild Turtle, talk about how him being an NA ADC that everyone's forgetting about. Like I wish they did more for the fan content. Like got kicked off TSM, didn't really do well, always bottom, and then all of a sudden came up to finals, and then did beat TSS. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, they did try to do a lot of stuff with Turtle. I mean, their content just wasn't that great, or like wasn't received well. What I'll say, okay, I'm gonna take the other side, and it's not even me just playing devil's advocate 100%. Like I think what Travis is saying about how there's some players that he would look at that get imported that are basically the same as like the washed pro, like the guy, like, oh my god, I can't believe he's getting another shot kind of thing. That's how I look at a lot of, like, through the same lens. Like there's a lot of questionable roster moves that GMs make over the course of the year, and some are related to imports, some aren't. The ones that do come over that we're excited about, I think actually add a ton to the scene, and like they're not going to appeal to every fan. There is the people who care more about the domestic scene and those kinds of things. There's also teams who just want to compete and want to have hype, and like Sword Art, who the fuck knows if TSM is going to be great with Sword Art? Are people just not excited that Sword Art's joining the league? Are people not just excited that Alfar is joining the league, that Perks is joining the league? Like there's a level of hype and excitement that North America manages to win the offseason in a lot of ways in terms of conversation pieces that Europe usually doesn't. Like
we always take the EU players after they take our hope at Worlds.
Yeah, and that was a great meme for a long time. Like, and it was good. I think it adds to the region. You're right, Mark.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So like I think these players, as long as it's a smart import that they're making, it should level up the region. Assuming these players come over and want to try and they're playing well, it should increase fan engagement because, hey, this hype new ass player is joining our league and our scene. This is someone now that I can latch onto. I think it's all upsides if people do it well. I think the grandfathering of some players was a mistake in hindsight. Not people like Bjergsen and Jensen who like basically declared, I'm an NA resident of all time, but some of the things that happened with Impact and some players who like, I played for 4 years, now I'm North American, when they never really felt like an NA pro, to the caller's point about some of these things. Like, like I think that has led to some awkward teams, like like Team Liquid now, which is like 4 imports basically. And I think Jensen maybe doesn't really count because he's basically always been at NA. But like that feeling that can kind of exist is maybe a mistake. But the overall use of imports, I agree with. I agree with I think it was John Needham, the head of esports for North America, saying he doesn't want NA to be an import league. I think it's not really working right now.
Which, by the way, is an important. Just as an aside, it was very confusing when he did that because he's not actually in charge of North America, so he's just sort of saying a general statement about a thing that is unrelated to him. I mean, he has influence, but it's like really confusing to anybody who understands the way that Riot outlines the stuff. That like he would, it created a lot of problems, I think.
And then like the thing with Oceania coming and basically becoming North America as well is this big disconnect between like, well, you can tell me they're a North American player, but like a fan might not feel that way, you know?
True.
So like I'm a little bit I'm pro the idea of importing. I like the idea that like you can have 2 on your team. The grandfathering has made it awkward. The sudden influx of oceanic talent that is now just considered North America, despite the fact that most fans have no fucking clue who half these players are, even if they're good players. You know, like I like a lot of them.
Yeah, but nobody knows who like Niles is.
Yeah, but at least
not hear about him until Offseason.
I agree, you know, rookies or whatever, but it doesn't feel like a hype import. It just feels like this guy who, if you are a fan of North America, you might have been following Niles, or you might have been following, fucking Tom Shu with Yusui or whatever, you know, like, I can understand people in Rise position who are wanting to see more North American talent given a shot, that this doesn't feel like they're going to get their time. I can understand that position, but I think there's fans on the other side who I am, which is like, I just want the best players we can get without going full-blown, we're just Korea's B team with worse infrastructure.
So, but
you know,
but
like,
that's
I
like you like the current.
Are saying the same thing.
We're all saying we like the current system and we don't want to see changes to it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
We don't want more imports. We don't need less imports.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that I would just like, if maybe we are disagreeing on anything, I don't know we are, Mark, is I worry about a world, NA as a region in terms of player base and developing talent and stuff, it's all, as we allow more and more imports, I think the current balance is fine. As we take away more and more opportunities for aspiring players to see themselves on the pro stage, because they're like, shit, like every top team is just importing 4 or 5 players. Like, what does that do for our region in terms of like competitive desire, solo queue, health, population, all that stuff? One of these things I wanted to ask before we came on the call today, I think this is like the opportunity to do that. Travis, I brought it up in our channel earlier. It's like, Mark, what do you think would happen if Damwon came over and played the full next year and competed in North America?
You must have brought this up in a different channel because I don't think you brought it up in mine.
I think that they would absolutely smash. C9.
I mean, when they go to Worlds next year.
Right. So I was getting to that. I would say they would absolutely smash. It would be C9 levels of dominance. I don't think that they have the drop off. And I think they go to Worlds, and I think that they probably lose to the best Chinese or Korean team. Whoever, I don't know which one it is, but
like, how far do they go?
Yeah. Probably semis, maybe.
Yeah, and I bring that point up to illustrate, or I bring that example up to illustrate the point that I think that regardless of the quality of talent that North America is importing, until the region, from a competitive atmosphere and standpoint, is King Kai's planet level of gravity, we are not going to compete consistently on the world stage. Sorry, that's a DBZ reference, Travis. Maybe some people in the chat will get it. We are not going to compete consistently on the international stage. And so really all you're doing with importing these players is, you're creating cool storylines, and it's really fucking hype when Jack goes out and signs Perks. Does it? But, Steve had a quote today in a Team Liquid piece about how doing this builds the infrastructure and is like our path for a shot at Worlds. And I like Steve a lot. We are great friends. I think that is a lie that you have to tell yourself and the public in order to keep on the same path that you are, and that importing players like this doesn't actually increase your shot at being competitive and winning a world championship. I think that it means that you are more likely to win your region, and maybe you'll go a little bit further, but until North America as a region is competitive in the ways that Europe, China, and Korea are competitive from a practice standpoint, it doesn't fucking matter, dude. Like, you are going to get Perks come over, and he will have attrition in skill and game understanding from competing in this region for a year.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think depending on what the owners are saying, you could easily land up going one way or the other. Because if they're saying, hey, we have all these problems and importing doesn't fix any of them, but we still need to do it because it makes us better in the short term, then that's one take. If people are saying that this is the fix, if it's being positioned like that, then I can't get on board either.
Yeah. I guess I would just say everyone should be pretty damn happy with this offseason. I think this is the best possible scenario. I wish we had traded out some of these players earlier, but I think it is good that we have imports that people can get excited about, and I think it is good that we are flipping a lot of the talent. I think if I was in charge, I would have kept a couple more of these folks in the mix. We can argue about who, if it's Sneaky, if it's Hanser, if it's whoever. But I do think, look, everyone got what they want. We got some new hype imports. No one would have ever thought we could get Perks. G2 took our chances for TL getting out of groups. We took Perks. So, And then we have a bunch of teams that have rededicated themselves to growing the scene. And we have changes that are coming to Academy and Amateur that are meant on expanding and deepening the pool by which we generate people, rather than like an Academy scene that you just toss some pros down there and kind of draft somebody from.
It's a bench.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of really good news this offseason. But to Kelby's point, I don't anticipate us winning Worlds next year. I guess that's my bold take of the night. Is I don't think that
you're fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
I'll just say that also.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I would just say that in the end, I would love to see NA win Worlds, but I just don't know if I would ever get behind NA winning Worlds if it's a full import team. And I would just definitely agree with Travis. Now, you changed my mind. Definitely, if we're importing top tier talent, I will then I definitely say if it's worth it. And yeah, definitely this off season just been super great.
Rye, thank you for that. I have one thing I just remembered. So actually, two things. One is, C9 sent me a pair of Cloud9 shoes this week that I unboxed on stream. Somebody tweeted at me and said, "So much for journalistic integrity." So that reminds me, I need to go back on. I think Jack is brilliant for suggesting that we bring in 5 imports. Secondly, setting aside the joke, I remember when Jack said that, and I read about it in the Reddit comments, because nobody watches content. You just look at the comments. My thought was it was weird to have that take from Jack, and maybe he and I will talk about it again in the future or something, in some interview or something, or he'll make a joke about it in the Twitch chat a second ago. Because Cloud9 has historically been the best team at uncovering and finding talent and developing talent and moving players up from their development system. In a world where TSM has relied on legacy players and TL has relied on spending money, I would celebrate Cloud9 for finding a lot of the talent that then ends up on Team Liquid, for instance. And so, that's why it was surprising for me to hear that from Jack, because in a little bit of an A2 Brute moment for me, because it's no, you're supposed to be the development guy. Don't tell me that we need to go import 5 players, because Fudge is in the chat, and you've had that guy sitting around waiting to take the spot for, Licorice's spot for a while.
Well, he was going to be an import until this year.
Yeah, but I mean, Jack knew. That's how good this guy is at developing. He foresaw OCE's demise and planned accordingly. Him and an arrow.
You can import. You can import and develop at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive.
Anyway, Rye, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we wind down the show?
Yeah, really quick, I want to shout out you, Travis. I've been following you with Doublelift in season 2. I just want to say I think you're such a great person for what you've done for Doublelift, and just seeing you take someone in. I thought that was great. Shout out to also Kelby. Been following you too since that. I don't know much about Mark, but I definitely appreciate how real your takes are. No, I'm serious. Like, it's really dope. And last, just want to shout out a couple of my friends, Patrick, David, and then also Caxel. And also, I love you guys. I really do appreciate. And I do want Spica to become the next NA talent. I'm rooting for Spica.
Thanks for calling in, dude. You were great.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks
Good
so
energy.
much,
I
Rye.
love
And
you. Thank you.
I appreciate you shouting out my career because it's now over because Peter got hurt. So thank you so much for the call.
I was gonna say,
shout out Alienware. They've been sponsoring this boy. This man has the best content. I like every single content of this man, and I appreciate Alienware for sponsoring this man because if he stopped making content, dude, 2020 has been hurtful, bro. Doublelift retired, Bjerg, Reckless Left Fanatic. I don't want to hurt anymore. Please don't stop sponsoring my man, Travis Gafford, the GOAT.
I promise that when Kelby and I and the sales team go to Alienware, this will be at the end of a video that we show them. Because
I honestly just want to be a friend. That's all I want.
All right, this is becoming right.
Yes.
Thanks so much for the call.
Yes.
We got.
Thank you. Have a good one.
say hi to your mom, Spica.
Dude, Rye is coming in the renewal presentation. All right, he's gonna be in the room pitching for sure.
I mean, I think he made a good point about Travis and Doublelift on the come up together, kind of at the same time. Travis, I think it's actually very apt if you would just retire as well with him.
No, a lot of the
hang up
comments
boots at the same time.
A lot of the comments on my video about Doublelift retiring were like, "Oh shit, sounds like we're about to have another our third NA star retire this year or whatever." And I'm not retiring as long as Alienware renews. Okay, that's my commitment. If Alienware renews, I'm going nowhere. I literally cannot turn down the amount of money that they are offering me. That would be insane. Anyway, this has been
Thanks
a show.
for the donation, guys. We need them.
By the way, please sub. Please sub. Please sub. Papa Smithy says he will stay for the money. Classic NA talent. So true. So true. Mark, what do you got this week? What do you want to shout out? What's coming up?
Nothing. It's the off season. It's the dregs. I don't know. I can't even travel for holidays. There's.
It's so funny. I was talking to Kelby about this. This will be this month. Out like setting aside the sponsor stuff. This will be the month that I make the most money this year because of the YouTube stuff from Offseason and all the Twitch stuff and etc. Just from like native platforms, it is my biggest month because there's all this coverage and all this stuff. I'm like working a ton. You and Kobe and all these other people are just sitting around doing nothing. It's so funny the difference in our work schedule.
I'm not doing nothing.
You're working on personal projects, but you're not doing like league work or anything like that.
Yeah, nothing public facing.
Yeah. Anyway, so you got nothing to shout out.
No, not right now. Hopefully someday.
What about your
Next
Twitter?
year.
Can you shout out your Twitter?
Yeah, it's on the screen.
Great. Good job. Kelby, I don't know when the next time we're going to have you on since you're like, I have no reason to care about League of Legends anymore now that...
I'm not going to be a coach. It's nothing to do with coaching. I'm not going back to coaching.
No, but it could be something else. Who knows? Everyone should speculate.
Yeah.
Kelby, I don't know when we're going to have you next on the show. I mean, I'd love to have you on again in the future, but also you're proudly proclaiming your newly found League of Legends abstinence. So...
Yeah.
Peter's
done. I'm done, dude.
So Kelby's the actual
That's
one.
a real ride or die homie right there.
Yeah. Maybe Kelby will come out of retirement for Hotline League in the future. But any final words for the Hotline League audience?
I know that a lot of people really want me to talk about the Chainsmokers, and I would love to talk about the Chainsmokers, but unfortunately, they haven't released music in a while. So maybe at some point in the future, when I watched a shit ton of League this World, so maybe next Worlds or something, the Chainsmokers have actually done something worth a damn.
Kelby, be careful, okay?
I'm gonna get blocked again. Yeah, right. These guys don't watch the show. Drew, Alex, if you're watching, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Stop making pop music, okay? Get back in the studio, start cranking out those bangers, those big, progressive, big room beats that we fell in love with you for, okay?
would you rather them not make music or make pop music?
Ultimately, all right. I should meme this.
More
but I'm gonna give a
Coldplay
sincere-
collabs.
I'm
That's
going
what
to give
I
a
want.
sincere answer. I think that those guys, as artists, they have complete control over the creative rights. They should make whatever they want to make. If they want to make pop music, they don't want to make EDM anymore. That's fine. But in a serious shout out, you guys, if you don't already play Total War, Warhammer 2, all right, you can. I found out the secret. You can turn your virginity back in. All right, you can get your virginity back and start playing Total War with me. All right, it's the fucking sickest game. The new DLC drops on Thursday. I've been waiting forever. Okay, you should check it out. And if you're looking for Total War content, Fenron Jenkins streams once every 6 months. But when he does, he's the goated Total War Warhammer 2 streamer. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun. I'll miss Peter. I won't miss League, but I'll miss watching Peter play League. So
Very good. And for me, I've got a bunch of stuff dropping randomly on the channel. I need to just.
What? Never mind. Finish first.
I need to just suck it up and do this video I've been wanting to do for the past week. That is about how, and Kelby would actually like this topic, that the new Valorant esports structure is what all League fans wish the League of Legends structure was, which I find hilarious. And so I'm planning on doing a video about that. If you're another content creator watching this, you're not allowed to take that idea. I'm claiming it right now. You can't steal it. So I need to do that, and I've got some other stuff I need to do. Mark wants to do another book channel video, and we got to figure that out. I guess we can do something.
First Law trilogy.
We
Pitching
should
it right
do.
now.
You know what would be good is we do a video making like suggestions for gifts for a gift guide for the book channel.
That sounds boring. You should do that. I can't give opinion. Like I want to analyze the series. I don't want to be like
What if we recommend books for people, like a gift in your life, and it's like, okay, if you want somebody who's like edgy and kind of like sarcastic, First Law. Buy them First Law trilogy. It's anything by Joe Abercrombie is great. If you want something, if you have somebody in your life that is religious and pious, Mistborn. Kissing is about as racy as it gets.
I mean, minus all the graphic violence and the horrible society that
there's too many jokes to make here. I'm not going to make any of them. But anyway, so Mark and I have a gift guide hitting the book channel soon.
No, I don't want to do a gift guide. I want to do another series or a book, one that we've both read.
I'm an Amazon
I'm
affiliate
Eliza
member.
Locklemore right now.
I need to make recommendations.
Make the recommendations on your own, and then let's do a review on one of these.
So anyway, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've been getting a ton of subs. And also go follow my Twitch channel. If you're listening to this right now on Spotify or iTunes or some sort of podcast platform, you're listening to it or watching it on YouTube, go to my Twitch, twitch.tv/Travis Gafford. I've got almost 78,000 followers. I'd love to hit 100K. That would feel good. And go follow my TikTok, Travis Gafford. This has been Hotline League.
Shut up.
151.